Really great to see you all. It's Wednesday afternoon, our all conference chat, and this is the last Wednesday of the month. So we're talking about what's going on in the conference. I'll give some updates and then invite questions and comments and see what unfolds. The executive committee met last weekend and did some good work, and I'm sure David can give us some more updates on that. But a couple of key pieces are the financial cleanup continues. So much was done last year. There were only a few accounts that were still needed the fine-tooth comb treatment going into the beginning of the year. All of our investment accounts are now fully established, underway, going gangbusters. I mean, they're losing money right now because the market is not doing well, but that we're long-term investors, so we know that that's going to turn around. That's the nature of things. The council and FAB see those reports and all the time, well, every month. We also now have regular reports. Bob Poor does just an awesome job putting together the reports for FAB, which is Finance, Administration, Business, for those of you who might not know. And that includes a report of all of our properties. And so we're really on top of what's going on with our properties. We've sold several of them. Right now, we only have 2 that are active in the sales process, and one of them is under contract. So that is fantastic news and huge progress. The final big push of our cleanup is converting our financials to ACS financials, which integrate with Realm. So you've heard us talk about Realm, you've heard us talk about ACS financials. They're products that are both from the same company, and they interact with one another. Realm does have a financial module in it, but it didn't allow us to do the accounting, the complexity of the accounting that the Illinois conference deals with. So we're in the middle of a cutover to a new financial system. And any of you who have ever cut over computer systems in any aspect of your life, even if you were a patient at a hospital that switched over to MyChart or to Epic, you know that it doesn't go 100% smoothly. It just doesn't. It takes a minute to work out all of the challenges. So we had hoped that by our March meeting, by our April meeting, we would have had, we delayed our April meeting till the first week in May, hoping that we'd be able to have full year-to-date reports in ACS. And we just ran into more issues than expected. It's kind of like doing a construction project, right? You have your budget and you have your timeline. And I've always been told to expect whatever your budget is to end up costing double, or at least 1.5 times, and your time to also double. So we're kind of in that same mode with our financial with our transition to the new accounting system. We have all of the new chart of accounts. It's all established, all of our new accounts, but we keep, as we dig in, as we start to implement it, we're like, oh, we didn't think about that, and have to then work those details out. But I talked with Keith yesterday at length, and we expect for our June FAB meeting, which is June 21st, to have year-to-date Realm full reports in Realm. And so our statement of financial position, our balance sheet, our budget versus actual, all of those reports will now be, and because all of the data will be out of ACS financials. And finally, almost 2 years in, this is by my 2-year anniversary, August 1st, it's a major accomplishment to finally have consistent and regular financial reports that we can manage from. That's been a tough thing. But it's exciting to be turning that corner. Also, in my first term, you remember we have done a lot of staff transitions, redesigning job descriptions, right sizing and resizing and reshaping and restructuring our staff. And so the first 6 months of 22, I've really spent a lot of time and effort in staff development. And it's kind of exciting to watch the staff get excited about these new jobs. It's not so overwhelming, like, it's all changing. You know, the first bit that it's like, change, it's hard. But to see Terrell take on a new project and talk to the ML team, like, I'm so excited about working on this. This is how it's unfolding, and this is how it's going to make a difference. To see Tracy advocating for pay raises for her staff because she's charged with now managing the full budget, which means that she has to always be managing the staff costs and expenses with this level of service needed to be able to bring in the business. So these are new skills that we are asking of our camp directors. To see Kathy hosting a workshop for all 5 committees on ministries to review the fitness review process, and to be working with the fitness response team. Of the 7 fitness reviews that have started since I came on board, 2 are transferred out of our conference for adjudication, so we don't have much control over those. One has been, Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking I'm going to get this all right, but tell me when I'm wrong. One has been was dismissed. One, the full report is ready to go to COM, and will go to the CMA COM at the beginning of June. One is and two others are in investigation. Did I catch all of them?
Correct. Yep.
So really kudos, Kathy, for your work with the committees on ministry, and especially getting some momentum, getting some inertia going with regard to these fitness reviews.
Well, if I can just say, we had excellent predecessors in Chuck Maney and Lori Reed, and we have excellent successors in Bob Tolich and Renita Ward. And then the 5 chairs of the committees on ministry are really good.
Yes. And we know that it's more than just good people, right? Chuck is on the call. Hi, Chuck. Is fantastic and was just the right person in there, but the system wasn't in place to, help the cogs move in the wheel. It just wasn't moving. And so it's not Chuck's fault. It's looking at, or this is a system, and it takes a while to get things and get the momentum going. And so it's gratifying that some of these changes have allowed us to really see these things move forward. I just talked with Stephanie Perdue this morning. She's working with Search and Call, and she was so excited on our MLT meeting on Monday she's finally getting some of the first letters of call finalized since we started. And so seeing those positions getting filled, seeing those search committees sort of relaxed along the way, all of that has just really been helpful. And it's fun to see, and our support staff, it's just fun to see folks blossoming and loving their work. And the time spent in the last 6 months really working on staff development is time well spent, in my opinion. We're transitioning.
Molly?
Oh yeah, Mark.
Yeah, if I understood you correctly, you said that two of the processes had transferred out of the conference. How is that possible unless they just gave up their standing?
No, it's not the individuals. There's sometimes when a fitness review gets initiated by a committee on ministry in a particular association, it's all association based, it's not conference based. But
right.
there's conflicts. If there's too much conflict of interest, they cannot be adjudicated within the conference. sometimes within the association, sometimes it's to a point that it can't be done within the conference. And we work with national staff that the adjudication gets transferred out, not the individual.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I've been working with council that the next big push or next big project, a next big issue that we're aware of that we need to work on is governance. I don't think I go to any meeting without something being, oh, that committee doesn't work right, or nominating doesn't happen right, or we are underrepresented in this nature, in this particular spot. We have our committees are too big, or our committees are too small, or we can't step. Those are all issues of governance. And so very, very early in my tenure, I had a conversation with John Prane, who was at the time vice president of the council. And I said, David Holston as president and I are going to be working on finances and personnel, right? And John, put your seatbelt on, because in your term as president, we're going to be doing governance. Let's see what we need to be addressing now, and let's start sort of collecting what are those issues that need to be addressed. And I assured the executive committee that I expect this to be a bigger project than our financial cleanup, and just as important for the health and vitality of the conference. So important for us to practice those elements of trust and transparency that we've been working on with our financial cleanup process. So important for us to do broad engagement with the conference at all stages of the decision-making process. We can't just bring, these are the revisions to the bylaws that, or this is the rewritten constitution that we're ready to vote on. No, there are going to be conversations and engagement points all along the process, and this will be a multi-year process to get resolved. So that means that there's going to be some awkwardness in the meantime, right? There's going to be some things that are like, this is our current, these are the rules of our current bylaws that we know don't work well, but we live by, because we get to a different part. We get to a different place. David, you just threw out there that there were other subjects discussed in the executive committee. I hadn't gotten to all of them, but do you want to throw in what you want to touch on, some of those other things that came up?
Yeah, I apologize. I hit the enter button. I thought I was going down to list them, and I did that wrong. There were 3 subjects that are worth mentioning. One is the General Synod, which will be in Indianapolis live in 2023. And at this year's annual meeting, we will be electing delegates for that. And I believe we have 1 extra delegate this time around. We have 55 delegates. The second was exactly the annual meeting, which has now been confirmed for October of this year, October 19th through the 22nd. That's a Wednesday through Saturday. So we'll be putting something out with more information shortly. And I know the annual planning committee met last night. So Terrell may have an update for that I haven't got yet. And then the last thing was just general information that on October 2020, the ESD, the Executive Service Corps, did a review of the conference and gave us a report. Molly and I reviewed it at the time. She had just come on board. And the executive committee and the conference council next month will be talking about the probability of asking them to come back and do a review now after 2 years of where we are right now. So that's just general information that was also in the executive committee.
Thanks, David. Point out that the conference annual celebration will be virtual, and the General Synod in 23 will be in person. They are also presenting some hybrid options. Delegates, I think, will have to be in person, but there will be better engagement for hybrid options for the wider church to be able to participate without the expense of travel and being located in Indianapolis. But we're also lucky it's in Indianapolis. That's pretty close for us this time. So that's great. The last thing I've talked about in terms of my report is, and I've talked with all of the staff about, is I do a lot of tasks, right? But in terms of my leadership of the conference, I've sort of settled on there being 5 overarching themes or culture changes that are long-term work, right? But they are the boundaries around that contain all of the decisions that we make. So if we're doing a program, or we're doing we're changing staff, or we're looking at governance, there are 5 sort of overarching things that bound those decisions. And I always forget one. So I always forget a different one. So maybe I'll get them all, and maybe y'all will have to help me out. But they are broad engagement, that the work we do needs to include a wide audience throughout the conference. Innovation and experimentation, trust and transparency, forward movement. We can't just have committees that are committees. We have to continue to be moving forward in our work and following God's mission. And finally, I'm going to remember all 5. Diversity, equity, inclusion, commitment to dismantling racism, becoming an anti-racist organization. All of those are long-term work. So it's not like I'm going to give you a report of these are the things we're doing for broad engagement. Everything we do should have an eye toward broad engagement. Right? There's not going to be a list of things. These are the activities that are part of becoming anti-racist. Everything we do has to have a lens and a perspective on anti-racist that continues to draw us into deeper consistency with that identity. So, wow, I'm proud of myself for remembering all 5. I never remember all 5. But I think that's really coming out of my early observations of the conference and just the ongoing conversations. Those 5 things seem so consistently the issues that raise to the forefront and raise to the top of what is going to help get us to a healthy, vibrant place as a conference. So I want to stop talking and invite some questions or comments. So I will actually stop talking and stop inviting. And what questions or comments might you have for us today?
You did such a good job that everybody's completely satisfied, Molly.
I'd like to see a lot more younger people appointed to committees and boards and given responsibility. I think that would go a part of the way toward innovation and some of the other of your 5. And I know that our churches tend to be 70 and over, 60 and over, but we do have some in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, and young 60s. I'd like to have them nominated to positions.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartly. And there's 2, I'd address 2 prongs of that. One, it goes in the governance box with our nominating process not being as effective as it needs to be. 2, part of nominating is, I'm going back to 1, part of nominating process is getting in the field and knowing people in the churches, and not just the clergy, and not just the people who show up on Wednesday afternoon, and not just the people who are already serving, not just the people who are already represented in some way. You know, how do we go a little deeper and find those other folks? I make a lot of effort when I get out, and I'm glad to be starting to get out in the field more. I've learned that it's not everyone's gift to notice other people's gifts and help them plug them into the right place. But that's one of the things that I've recognized over time is one of the things that's it's like breathing to me, which is why it's hard for me to understand, understand how it's not easy for others, but I've come to learn this. It's like breathing to me. When I go out and I meet people, I talk to them about what their passions are, their interests. I learn that maybe they're retired from human resources, or that they they have been an attorney in a corporation forever, or that they own a business that does financial planning, you know, or that they're coming out of Elmhurst College and excited about the United Church of Christ, and trying to then invite that connection into the active leadership, and get that to go through our nominating process. So part of the nominating process is the rules of our governance, and part of the nominating process is getting in the field and actually making those connections and meeting the people in our communities that aren't already represented, aren't already at the table, and they can be hard to find. Terrell, maybe you can talk a little bit about the new annual planning committee, because there's been some real intentionality about getting that committee together.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. One of the things we want to share is that when we pulled together the annual planning committee this year, the nominating process didn't go as it could have gone. And so we went out and solicited folk, and we brought in intentionally targeted people that weren't necessarily the old familiar face, and weren't necessarily as active as some of the people had been in previous years. And so we have a pretty good makeup and pretty good cross section of younger folk, younger than David and myself. And we're excited about this year's planning. So
Yeah, one of them is on this call. Sharian is on this call. He's
Right.
part of that.
Thank you.
The co-chair is 45 years old.
Yeah, and we got a couple of 30-year-olds. So yeah, so we're
Yeah.
pretty excited about
We've made some good progress.
yeah.
Good.
Well, one part that's going to have to be addressed, I would imagine systematically at some point, is the fact that so many conference positions are not actually conference nominates very few positions.
Yeah.
Most positions come from inside associations, which is an issue I'm not quite sure how to deal with or solve. Associations have to have representation, but to the degree we have it, it's hard to do structural change just due to that fact.
Yeah, and that's when we look at the governance issues related to nominations. And Chuck, I see your hand, so you're next. I believe that in nonprofit organizations, the most important committee is nominating. Because you have to get the right people in the right seats. You have to get people with the right skills and the passions and the time, and be willing to make the ask. And so often it is treated as an onerous task. And I don't know how many of you have ever been asked to serve on a committee and told, well, we really just need somebody for this committee and it's not very much work. So won't you please, like, you know, just come and be part of it? Okay, why is that compelling? Like, we present that as like the softest, gentlest request, but it's saying you're not really that important and we don't really care what you're interested in. We just need people here. And we need to find some other different ways of doing that. Y'all have to respond to David in chat. 30% of our general synod delegates are supposed to be under 30. 50% need to be lay. So we need to hear everybody's suggestions. And Mark is absolutely right. Most of the nominating comes through the associations. So you don't have to tell me, or you don't have to tell David or Eric Queenie Bernard, who's chair of the conference, nominating committee. You need to tell Mark Binder, who's the nominating chair in Western. You need to tell anybody who's on your association council, tell your ACM. You know, we all need to work together on trying to find the best people and the right people at this table.
One suggestion.
Mark, yeah.
This is long-term structural, and I'm going to be off. Thank heavens I'm off nominating at the end of this year. One suggestion would be as far as conference restructuring piece, and that is to make the conference nominating committee include the chairs of all the association nominating committees.
Yeah, that's going to be a piece that's going to go to the governance.
Yeah, I know. I'm just throwing out an idea. So
Yeah. We'll have many more of these conversations where we're collecting ideas. Chuck, I want to turn to you. You've been so patient.
And I'm not sure that my comment is all that germane to where the conversation has gone. But one of the difficulties we've had through the years in recruiting and keeping good people on conference committees is that the committees did not appear to have any voice or any ability to cause change or to fix things. And it doesn't take long for good, talented people to realize that they're not being listened to. And so I know that in the interview process, Molly Carlson said that one of her priorities as a conference minister would be to develop the board. And I know that you have taken that seriously and have been working hard at helping the board understand their responsibilities and taking them seriously when they choose to act on that. And I think that is the message, that is a piece of the message that has to go out, is that it's not busy work. Real change is happening in the church, and it's happening because of those folks who are involved and active, are bringing the best ideas they can encounter and helping that to build what our future looks like. And so there's nothing more demoralizing than to go in with good ideas and to be hushed and moved to the corner. And so I think that's the message, that it makes a difference is a compelling reason to join in.
Thank you. Paul.
Oh, let's see. Okay, I am delighted to hear what you guys are doing. I'm on the Committee on Ministry for the John Knox Presbytery, north of Illinois. And you are working very, very hard at getting this church structure together to work smoothly. And I am excited. I just sent an email to the clerk or secretary or whatever you call her. She's on vacation. And to the new president of the Salem Church. And I did that by forwarding your invitation to me. Plus I gave them the link separately. And so I'm going to take off because I'm in the middle of finishing my sermon. But I am excited to hear what's happening in the conference. This is the kind of juice we need to get our goals established and get people to discover Christ through the church. So I'm really excited, and I'm sad to say goodbye.
Well, like we said, Paul, you're always welcome.
I will see if I can drop in sometime. Peace be with you all.
Maybe you'll find yourself back in the territory one of these days.
Oh, you never know, do you? It's up to God.
Always is. Bless
Bye-bye.
you. Brett, do you want to throw your 2 cents in out loud? Brett has some really good comments over oh, he's in the library, so he can't speak out loud. So he's recognizing that as a layperson, to be able to go to synod, to be able to go to our committee meetings, have required him to work out at camp, have required him to use his personal vacation time to do this. And we just had a great conversation at the executive council this last week about how we might need to look at ways of being really creative in our meeting scheduling to accommodate sort of changing clergy schedules. Our committees right now are clergy heavy and need higher representation of lay people for sure. But so many clergy are now having there are a lot of funerals, a lot of weddings on Saturdays in ways that there weren't before. And so many of our committees meet on Saturdays. So how could we look at, and we like to have it, so it's like always the first Saturday or always the third Tuesday at 6 o'clock. But we might need to be looking at schedules that vary, that aren't always on Saturdays, aren't always on Monday nights, that make it so that everybody probably has to miss something because of their personal schedule or their work schedule, but to accommodate the work schedule and the engagement of lots of folks.
Yeah, I'll jump onto Brett there too, because the first two synods that I went to, I had to take vacation time for. And it wasn't until I retired that I was actually able to go to a synod without taking vacation time. And then this year, when I was really looking forward to it, and we had it virtual, but a lot of the meetings, I would have to take days off to be able to attend a meeting in Westchester over the last few years. So I think there's some validity what he's saying. I'm just not sure what the solution. We all recognize it's a concern and an issue. We just don't know what the solution is, because most of us have to work 6 to 9 months ahead of time scheduling things, or we're not available.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, Chris?
I had the same problem. I used to have to take vacation days because outdoor ministries meetings went Friday and Saturday and spent the night. So I, being, layperson, I couldn't work on church and ministry because it was a full day on Thursdays, which to me just meant that you didn't want any layperson who was under 65 on that committee, basically. So yeah, it's annual meeting tended to be Friday and Saturday, or Thursday, Friday and Saturday. Supposedly they alternated years where it was Saturday and Sunday. Well, they did for a while, but now it seems to go back to more, again, as a layperson who's been involved for a long time, I've always thought maybe it was good or maybe it was bad, but it did make it a lot easier for ministers to be on meetings than for working lay people, younger lay people.
For sure. This is why governance are going to be a major, major, major project. All of these are governance issues, like the way that we schedule meetings, the way that we recruit, the way that the size of our committees. I think we've learned a lot about virtual meetings, and we have found that we have much better attendance in virtual meetings. When you take away a major commute for in-person meetings, that makes a huge difference. I've been on Zoom for many years before pandemic, so I've been doing Zoom and remote meetings for a long time. I served the church out west, and Tracy will tell you, out west is a different understanding of distance. Our folks might have to drive 5 hours. Out there, you might have to drive 12 hours to get to a meeting, and that's no joke. And so we also learned that having everyone on a screen creates an equality that even though we want to meet in person, the hybrid is the least effective mechanism for a meeting. It's either all on Zoom or all on person are by far more effective. And with our geographic distance and our desire for diversity, including young people who work. And young people who work are now it's not unusual to work till 7, 8 at night. So how do you get meeting schedules that accommodate all of the diversities that we want? So we have a lot of things to sort through, and these are going to be hard conversations. I love that we're starting the conversation, but these are going to be hard conversations that we're having over the next several years. And it comes down to who we are, who do we want to be, who is God calling us to be, and how do we live into that? Because it's those structures and in many ways our governance and our engagement and who is recognizing who is excluded from the table because of decisions that we make about our structure. And we don't always think about that until we're really challenged to deal with it. So I love the things that you're bringing up. And Mary, I see your comments about remote and not, and just how hard it is as a layperson to be fully and not retired. A not retired layperson, really hard to be engaged. I think we find our local churches struggle with the same thing though, right? Not just with meetings, but one of the most visible is women's circles, women's ministries, right? We have these vibrant women's groups, and they, when I was as a young woman, they always wanted me to get involved. Like, why is everyone in our church, all the women in our church involved in these programs over 60, over 75, right? And Molly, you've got to be involved. I said, I work at 10 a.m. and at 8 p.m. I am putting my kids to bed. I'm not available at either of those times. So finding ways that work for different generations, different lifestyles, different work commitments, different family commitments, different travel possibilities, different technology access. Mark is a trooper. He comes on and figures out how to make Zoom work from the telephone, which isn't as easy. We all might recognize that Mark doesn't see what's going on. And Mark, you know this, we all know this. Mark just has to interrupt and say something and doesn't get to stand in line with his hand raised because you can't do that from on the phone. It's a different mechanism, but out where he lives and in a lot of places in our country, we don't have adequate cell service or internet service to be able to do video conferencing. So there's going to continue to be challenges for us to sort through. This is a good conversation. Thank you for it. What other questions or comments have you got for us today? Tracy, do you need to put in a plug for anything going on out at Tower Hill?
Always. For Tower Hill and Pilgrim Park, we still have youth camps that are open. We would love to have your youth participate. If you don't have kids in your church, please look outside your doors at kids that are walking by on the sidewalk or kids who you might see at the grocery store. Like, let's get creative in finding young people, because the past 2 years of the pandemic have been really, really tough on kids and youth. And a week at camp is something that can really help them stabilize and help them grow. We have scholarships, and we will always find scholarship money available so that kids can do this. So we've got camps primarily in July. I believe that's correct. We also have a lot of grandparent and me camps that are available, and we use the term grandparent to really mean any family member. So if you are an aunt or an uncle or anything like that. It's a child plus an adult. We would love to have you come out.
I'm looking forward to coming out and doing almost a week volunteering out at Tower Hill, helping out. And tomorrow I'm stopping by Pilgrim Park to pick up some maple syrup. So put your orders in with me. I will be selling most of what I have. Some of it, I have to give one to my mom and I have to have one for my kids. But other than that, I'll have some extra. I expect to have some extra bottles. So hit me up for your maple syrup. Bill.
Do we still have a significant UCC presence in Haiti? We used to have a very significant group there.
In Haiti? Through global ministries, yes, there continue to be mission partners in Haiti. I don't have a current update on any particular activities or focus of their work. I know that COVID has been really difficult for our overseas mission work in general, and staying connected and being support. So I don't have a current update of what's going on in Haiti, but I do know that there continues to be a Disciples in UCC shared, because our global ministries is shared presence in Haiti.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out and being part of the conversation. Next week, we're going to hear from Marilyn Pagan Banks about the organization she's executive director of, A Just Harvest. They are a Chisholm, or almost a Chisholm organization. They're going through the process of becoming a Chisholm organization, but they're an important ministry that has been birthed out of the Illinois Conference. So we'll be hearing from them this morning. And just talking about that made me think of this other thing. This morning, I met with Jim Skogsberg and Kathy Benderschwick, the CEO and the Chief Spiritual Officer at Advocate Aurora Health. They just recently announced a pending merger with Atrium Health. Atrium Health is a healthcare system about the same size as Advocate Aurora Health, and located out of Charlotte, North Carolina. So it located in the Carolinas and down into Georgia. And got an update from them about the details, some more details about that merger and their ongoing commitment to recognizing the importance of their historical relationship here with the UCC and the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America. And we will retain seats on the legacy board and on the boards, the governing boards of all of the Advocate hospitals here in Illinois. And we talked about planning a trip down to with the UCC and ELCA leadership from Illinois and Wisconsin to head down to Charlotte and to maybe meet with our colleagues and peers there to emphasize the importance of this historic and ongoing relationship. So talk some about board seats and some of the mechanics. But anytime you have a major merger, the long-term projection, you just can't imagine how it is. Culture changes slowly, and a merger makes a big, initiates some culture change. So the current leadership are very committed and confident that the new organization, which will be called Advocate Health, and will still be marketed, it's still in Chicagoland, in Illinois, it'll be still marketed as Advocate. In Wisconsin, it'll be marketed as Aurora Healthcare, and in the Carolinas, it'll still be marketed as Advocate or as Atrium Health, but it'll all be under a umbrella of Advocate Health. And there is a very intentional awareness and clarity around the history of Advocate emerging from ELCA and UCC healthcare ministries that were born out of our churches. And that's a really important process. So just wanted to let you know that update, and that it's very much on their radar that UCC is a big part of their identity and will continue to be in the new organization.
So often these mergers just result mainly in the upper people getting increased salaries and don't really help the individual patient or the staffs in the hospitals. And I wonder if there's any way of judging whether this merger is any different from the others.
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to some of that. Just this last year, Advocate Aurora Health increased their minimum wage across their whole healthcare system to $18 an hour. And over 30% of the staff ended up receiving.
There's a tornado warning,
Oh, there's a tornado warning.
which we actually looked up, but that was a mistake, but now it's actually keeps happening. So,
Oh, that's good to know. Well, apparently there's a tornado warning in Westchester. I won't go down to the basement quite yet. I see blue sky, probably right behind us. So they're 30%, because not just the minimum wage, but all of the lower wages had a uniform increase. And the profit gap is quite small because there's been a significant increase in expenses with distribution, and then Advocate has practiced a really intentional about being a fair compensation organization. The assurance I hear from the chief executives are that the leadership Atrium can have a similar commitment. A lot more of it has to do with financially, it's to be sustainable because you have higher buying power, and with the distribution issues, the expenses for all the materials that are needed in the hospital, and that's where one of the big expense increases is. So I don't think I'm just blinded. I've been asking some pretty similar questions, Jane Ann, about this merger and about taking care of the customer, the patients, as well as the employees, because these are major employers and we are dependent. One of the comments made this morning was the expenses are up, both for personnel and for materials and other expenses. But Blue Cross isn't saying we're going to reimburse at a higher rate now. So the hospital ends up absorbing that gap. And so the whole system is broken. But this merger is I am inclined to believe that this particular merger of this particular corporations is designed to, bottom line, help the patient and help the employee and help the communities that it serves.
Does the other part of the merger have a history to share?
I know less about Atrium Health. The CEO that will become the CEO of Advocate Health of the whole organization after 18 months. There'll be co-CEOs for a while. His background is in faith-based healthcare, mostly in Catholic hospitals. And another piece that I learned was Atrium, Wake Forest University is part of the Atrium Health family, both as an avenue for ongoing education, but also educating a stream of folks that are prepared to enter into medical fields. Saying that. And Wake Forest is explicitly a faith-based institution of higher ed. It is historically Baptist, and we asked about what kind. I was like, what kind of Baptist? And we looked it up, and it's a North Carolina Baptist Association specifically. It's not a Southern Baptist. It's not American Baptist. It's not cooperative. We couldn't get further. It's North Carolina specific convention.
Have they discussed women's reproductive health issues?
I asked about women's issues, and I didn't ask particularly about reproductive issues. I asked about LGBT issues, and part of my asking about what was the faith-based identity at Wake Forest, because I knew it was a Baptist and organization. I was like, what kind? Because I said there's some really important ethical issues that are, from our point of view, absolutely necessary to address. And are we going to be cooperative in that sort of way? And I can't read into the future, but I know that the current leadership at Advocate, and Jim will continue as the co-CEO for the next 18 months and then will retire, and has pretty much hand selected his colleague who will serve as co-CEO and then take over as full CEO of the whole organization in 18 months.
Thank you.
We still have a seat at the table to continue to bring these issues, which is good news. All right, I want to honor our time today. Thank you all so much. It's great to see you. I leave on vacation this evening. So I will be celebrating my 25th anniversary with my husband, and doing some traveling and just enjoying some time together. No kids, no pets, no dishes or laundry. That's our plan. And so I will be gone for the next couple of weeks. You're in good hands with the associate conference ministers there. If you send me an email, you'll get a list of who's a response of who's helping out on each particular day, but you're in great hands. So thank you all so much. I will see you when we get back, and you all will meet next week to talk with the Just Harvest and Maryland Pagod Banks. So blessings on your day. See you soon.
Go well.
Thank you. Terrell, are we talking?
No, I'm not prepared.
All right.
All right, blessings.
I'll see you on the other side. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.